I had been secretly in love with my childhood friend for 10 years. After one reckless night, he despised me for 10 years. He finally got his wish when he died in a car accident, soaring away with his true love. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on that ambiguous, drunken night. I grabbed my belongings and fled, but then I heard that Shin Shue, who had always been proud, had turned Hwai City upside down searching for his childhood sweetheart. I had actually been reborn. Outside the house, neon lights flickered. Inside, the air was scorching hot. I pinched the palm of my hand hard. It hurt. It wasn't a dream. Oh, but that's not right. I was already dead. Even if it wasn't a dream, I shouldn't have been able to feel pain. Yang, the man's hoarse voice echoed in my ear. My whole body shuddered. I was not only reborn but also back on that fateful night. Yang. Shin Shue held my chin and kissed me passionately. I turned my face away. And his hot breath landed on my neck. No, that wasn't it. He wasn't calling Yang, but Yang, Qin Wei's nickname. In my past life, I thought he had finally noticed me. Overjoyed, I spent a wild night with him. Only later did I realize that Shin Shue had always loved Qin Wei. He was just drunk and mistook me for her. Shin Shue, sober up. I pushed him away forcefully. I had been secretly in love with him for 10 years. After that night, however, he hated me for 10 years, fortunately. This time, nothing had happened yet. Shin Shue paused, then looked down at me. There was no light in the room, but the light from outside was bright. He was drunk but still had a fair complexion and calm eyes, so much so that in my past life, I thought he was sober. Yang. He seemed to finally see my face clearly, his voice tinged with a strange tone, but the next second, his expression turned murky and complex. He urgently cupped my face and kissed me again. I raised my knee and kicked. Pushing him away with all my might, I rushed out the door. Breathing the cold air outside, I took out my phone and checked the time over and over. I had to be sure. I really had been reborn. I rushed home quickly, memories of my past life flooding back. Shin Shue and I were childhood friends, our families close. That night, it was supposed to be Aunt Shin who called me, saying Shin Shue wasn't answering his phone and asked me to check on him. I always knew the passcode to Shin Shue's apartment. I managed to open the door and encountered the drunken man. I had loved Shin Shue for many years. His repeated calls of Yang were something I couldn't resist. I didn't return home all night, and the next morning, both our parents arrived to find Shin Shue and me lying on the same bed. Our clothes were strewn all over the floor. Both families had intentions of matching us together, and this incident was just what they wanted, just as I was about to graduate from college. Our wedding plans were set. I was overjoyed during that time. After years of secret affection, to finally achieve this felt like reaching the heavens. I thought Shin Shue was happy too. He always had a cool demeanor, rarely showing his emotions outwardly, but he was there with me, taking wedding photos, choosing the engagement ring, never once saying no. Until our wedding day, a beautifully made-up girl cried inconsolably in the audience. Everyone thought Shin Shue was kissing me, but he was actually gritting his teeth, whispering in my ear, "Jiang, are you satisfied with this outcome?" Before this, I didn't know Qin Wei. Shin Shue was 2 grades above me. We were in the same city but not the same university. I had never heard about him liking any girl, nor had I heard about him being in a relationship. Shin Shue gave me an unforgettable wedding night. He accused me of drugging him that night. He furiously claimed it was all intentionally planned by me. Jiang. Your malice is chilling, your affection is disgusting. You so wanted to be with me. I'll let you have it. You've ruined my happiness. You'll never find happiness in this lifetime. He slammed the door and left, starting a decade of deep-seated hatred towards me. I slapped my cheeks hard, took a deep breath, and then went upstairs. Yang, you're back so soon. Is little Zhou okay? Hearing my mother's voice and seeing my father reading in the living room, my nose tingled with emotion. It felt good. It was the scene I missed the most. For many years after marrying Shin Shue, I dared not return home. Yang, I mumbled an He's fine. He really was fine. On the way back, I had called an ambulance for him. Whether I drugged him, and what kind of drug, let the doctors figure it out. Yang, what does this line say? Help Dad look. Suppressing the unease in my heart, I pretended everything was fine and joked around with my parents for a while before returning to my room. As soon as I entered, I saw the desk covered with photos of me and Shin Shue from our childhood to adulthood. I opened the drawer, and there lay the diary, unharmed. Shin Shue had read aloud my expressions of love for him right in front of me. I still vividly remember him tearing the pages one by one, my youthful feelings scattered all over. He sat at this desk, his face mocking and disdainful. Since you were 10, you wanted to claim me as your own, Jiang. You really are a freak, indeed. Who else but a freak could do such things? What grave sin had I committed to deserve him calling a 10-year-old child's innocent love freakish? It was not until Qin Wei was about to go abroad that I learned the full story. In a private tea house, Qin Wei was dignified and composed, far different from how she had kneeled and wept at the wedding. I'm getting married now, Miss Jiang. Can those videos be deleted? I was bewildered. She handed me her phone with a smile. On the screen was a chat history. The profile picture and nickname were me. If you're smart, you'll leave Shenzhou early. He and I are childhood sweethearts, betrothed from a young age. Have you no shame? If you don't leave, it doesn't matter. I'll post the videos on the school forum. Let's see who actually belongs with Shenzhou. Ruining myself. Does it matter? Without him, nothing matters. I opened the video. It was from that night of tangled emotions, almost subconsciously. I pulled out my phone. Qin Wei was indeed in my contacts list, but our conversation history was blank. Qin Wei laughed again. Actually, it was I who kindly informed Shen's mother that Zhou was drunk and needed care. I didn't expect Miss Jiang to repay us this way. Her words carried a tone of reproach, but her eyes couldn't hide the triumph. For the sake of Zhou's reputation and future, I had to painfully break up with him. Miss Jiang, you must be pleased. The words she uttered and her expression were so disconnected, it took me a moment to realize she was guarding against me recording her, yet she couldn't help but try to flaunt her power. She twirled the large diamond ring on her middle finger. It wasn't until she was about to leave that she lowered her voice and showed her true colors. Shen's mother is against me being with Zhou. She looks down on me, convinced that you and Zhou are a better match. Too bad. Qin Wei stood up, leaning close to whisper in my ear, Jiang, you won't have good days ahead. In this lifetime, Shenzhou will never forget me. Qin Wei was right. Shenzhou and I had no good days. I finally understood why he hated me so much. But it had been 3 years since then. In these 3 years, our relationship had completely fallen apart. He didn't trust me 3 years ago, and 3 years later, he didn't even want to hear my voice. I asked him to let go, but he wouldn't. I wanted a divorce, but he refused. He used my parents' company as leverage, determined to bind me to him, forcing me to face his cold indifference forever. I thought that was it between us, from childhood sweethearts to bitter adversaries. It was both sad and ironic, but Qin Wei's second statement was also true. Shenzhou couldn't forget her. In the 9th year of our marriage, Qin Wei returned to the country after her divorce. Shenzhou and she were seen entering and leaving places together, often photographed hand in hand, sharing passionate kisses. How wonderful! I could finally be free. I specifically chose Qin Wei's birthday to call Shenzhou a divorce agreement. What better birthday gift for Qin Wei? Shenzhou, however, was silent for a long time. Come here, let's talk face to face. Just when I thought he was going to refuse again, he spoke. I looked at the heavy snow outside. I have no other demands. I only want my parents' company. Everything that's yours. I won't take a cent. After today, we won't discuss this again. Then he coldly hung up the phone. I knew he had no affection left for me. Holding the agreement, I left the house. But the snow was too heavy that day, so heavy that when I braked, the tire skidded. Ahead was an elementary school letting out. I sharply turned the steering wheel, and the car flipped. I was so unwilling. To the end, I remained Shenzhou's wife. Yang. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Shenzhou. Was this after I went to the hospital and came to? I didn't reply to him, checking my contacts list. Sure enough, Qin Wei was there at this time. I can't even remember when I added her as a friend. It's all a blur. Yan, where are you? Another message from Shenzhou popped up. I frowned. Although his mother was trying to break us up, he still hadn't completely split from Qin Wei. Why look for me instead of Qin Wei now that he's sober? I exited the chat and noticed numerous unread messages. School had just restarted for my final year, and there were all sorts of messages in the grade and class groups. Xiaoyu, Yan, have you packed your bags? Don't be late tomorrow. I was stunned for a few minutes before snapping out of it. In my previous life, at this time, I had planned to go job hunting in Huicheng with Xiaoyu, but after that incident happened, I thought I ended up with Shenzhou and wanted to stay in the city, so I cancelled the trip to Huicheng. I quickly replied to Xiaoyu, Yu, how about we change our plans a bit? Xiaoyu, me, let's go to Jing City instead. Xiaoyu, Jing City. Xiaoyu is my best friend. As I was thinking about how to explain, she sent another message, sounds great. I'd follow Yin Yin anywhere without question. I couldn't help but smile. After discussing a bit more, I got up to repack my luggage. When I finished, I threw the group photo on the desk, the diary in the drawer, and even my SIM card into the trash bin. I went to Jing City. Aside from Xiaoyu, no one knew. Even my parents thought I went to Huicheng. Qin Wei's scheming was only half done, and unlike my previous life, I didn't get involved this time. I wasn't sure what other tricks she might pull. A decade of entanglements, a decade of love and hate, whether it's Shenzhou or Qinwei, I didn't want any more drama with them this time. But a month after arriving in Jing City, Xiaoyu whispered mysteriously to me, Shenzhou has been looking everywhere for you. He's almost turned Huicheng upside down. He's looking for me. Why? That last push I gave him the other night was quite forceful. His head hit the wall hard. Probably quite badly. Could he still hold a grudge? Forget him. I once thought I understood him, thought what we had was extraordinary. It was all just a fragile illusion. In the second month in Jing City, Xiaoyu found a job smoothly, while I was still dragging my feet. Yen Yen, you didn't trick me into coming here just because you actually don't want to stay in Jing City, did you? Of course not. The third month, I finally got the news I had been waiting for. A junior from high school told me he had a project that was short on funds and asked if I was interested in investing. In my previous life, I had just waited to graduate and marry Shenzhou, and when I heard about this opportunity in Jing City, I immediately rejected it. But that junior later became very successful. In 10 years, he built a billion-dollar empire from scratch. This time, I certainly wouldn't miss out again. I mobilized all the funds I could access, even borrowed some from my parents, and joined Xia Lin's team. One of my biggest mistakes in my previous life was giving up my career after getting married. Shenzhou had made his stance clear, yet I still harbored hopes. I thought there was a misunderstanding between us. I believed that if I did well enough, the bond we had since childhood, there's no hurdle too difficult to overcome. After waking up to reality 2 years later, not only would there be no place for me in his Shen family business, but even my parents' small company wouldn't have room for me to get involved. Little Jiang, how do I look in this outfit? Xia Lin is trying on a suit for a gathering in the industry tonight. I glance at him, speechless. Having lived twice, I've been called Yang Yang and Jiang Jiang, and those younger than me call me Sister Jiang or Sister Yang Yang, but he calls me Little Jiang. You look a bit like a waiter. Xia Lin goes to change. Makes your legs look short. Xia Lin changes again. Looks old-fashioned. Xia Lin continues changing. By the fifth outfit, I couldn't help but laugh. I stopped teasing him. Very nice, very handsome, you'll outshine everyone. Beaming with pride, Xia Lin goes to pay the bill. It's no wonder he's successful, smart, good-tempered, never acts superior. He's refreshing to be around. In the car, we review the list of attendees for the evening again. Connections are crucial for a startup. These gatherings are great opportunities to expand our network. But I never expected to run into Shenzhou here. This is my 6th month in Beijing, also my 6th month since being reborn. After reconnecting with Xia Lin, I stopped using all social media and didn't contact any old friends. Of course, I also didn't return to my original city. Even my graduation procedures were handled by Xiaoyu on my behalf. Actually, I noticed Shenzhou not long after entering. He and Qin Wei stood together, a handsome couple, well-matched. Do you know them? Xia Lin asks me quietly. I'm momentarily at a loss for words. I'm just surprised, that's all. The Shen family has always been in traditional industries and didn't get involved in the gaming industry in my past life. Shenzhou shouldn't be here. But then, something even more unexpected happens. Shenzhou seems to notice our gaze and looks up. Our eyes meet from afar, and his eyes suddenly redden. Yang Yang, almost immediately, he pulls his arm away from Qin Wei and strides towards me. I don't understand why he's so emotional. He's usually reserved and indifferent. He only shows his undisguised disgust when he mocks me with a smile. Shenzhou comes over to grab my hand. Instinctively, I step back, and Xia Lin steps forward to shield me. And who might this be? It seems only then does Shenzhou notice Xia Lin. He looks at him, then back at me. His lips twitch but he says nothing. Ajua. Qin Wei quickly follows Shenzhou, immediately taking his arm again. Is it Yang Yang? Yes, I think it is. Ajua. Qin Wei seems excited. She's so beautiful, even more than the photos in your phone. Hello, Miss Jiang. I'm Qin Wei. She extends her hand with a genuine smile. Xiaoming, your name is somewhat similar to Yang Yang. Ajua often mentions you to me. I glance briefly at her still smooth fingers. I'm not particularly keen on shaking her hand. Long time no see. I smile at Shinjue and introduce the person next to me. This is Xia Lin, the founder of Huayang Games, Mr. Xia. This is President Shin of Fingyu Group. Qin Wei feels ignored and retracts her hand in disappointment. Neither of the men seems interested in shaking hands either. Xia Lin is quite shrewd, probably already sensing something amiss in the air. He says with a chuckling smile, "Is that all, I and Yang Yang?" "I and President Shin are also alumni," I say with a smile, taking over Shinjue's words. "You could also call President Shin Sr. like me." Shinjue's expression turns sour, it visibly darkens. He stares at me unblinkingly. "Alumni, senior," he scoffs lightly. "You call this senior?" But somehow he seems a bit off. As Xiao Lin pours me a drink, he chuckles softly. His girlfriend is right beside him, and yet he glares at me. It's as if I stole his wife. I glance at Shinjue, who is indeed leaning against the rest area, swinging his glass and staring at us from afar. After that brief confrontation, I quickly leave with Xiao Lin. Tonight, the people I need to meet clearly aren't Shinjue. There's no need to waste time on him. I might as well show him for real. Xiao Lin boldly wraps his arm around my waist. Shinjue's gaze sharpens, and he sets down his glass, about to stand up. Qin Wei holds him back. She tugs at his sleeve and whispers something to him. Shinjue's face softens, and he casually pulls out a tissue to wipe the corner of her mouth. Xiao Lin, busy watching the pot while eating from the bowl. "What a dog thing." "That should be President Jiang of the Bronze World over there. Let's go meet him." I pull Xiao Lin towards the other side. Until the banquet ends, Shinjue doesn't approach us again. He and Qin Wei leave early, but the inevitable always catches up. That night, when I return, Shinjue is waiting at the apartment doorway where I rent with Xiaoyu. The autumn in Jing City arrives early. On a cool breezy night at the end of August, Shinjue leans against a corner, a cigarette in hand, its ember flickering in the wind. I send a message to Xiaoyu and walk straight over. "Aren't you avoiding me anymore?" Shinjue's voice is a bit hoarse. "I'm not avoiding you. That's the truth. I simply didn't want to deal with him. Not that I was hiding on purpose." "Why are you looking for me?" I ask. Shinjue pauses slightly with the cigarette in his hand, crushes the butt against the wall, and stands up to approach. I subtly step back. "Let's talk in the car." Shinjue's car is parked downstairs. I noticed it when I got out of Xiao Lin's car. I deliberately don't sit in the girlfriend-exclusive passenger seat and open the rear door instead, seeing me sit in the back. Shinjue closes the half-open driver's door and also moves to the back. I have to shift towards the door a bit. The space inside the car isn't cramped, but the atmosphere is somewhat stifling. After a long silence, Shinjue sighs. "Yang Yang, I went to your house, but your uncle and aunt wouldn't tell me where you went." "I went to your room." Did you throw away our photo together? And in your desk, I remember there were many diaries." "You also." I give a low chuckle. He gazed at Shinjue intently. "Why do you think I threw those things away? Don't you know? Being granted a second chance, I thought it was divine favor towards me. I never realized that I wasn't the only one blessed by fate." It's embarrassing to admit, but even after 10 years, I still remember what Shinjue looked like at 23. At 23, Shinjue disliked wearing suits, but if he did, he would opt for a stylish ash gray. At 23, he wasn't fond of red wine, preferring the fancier, more stimulating cocktails, and Shinjue didn't smoke at 23. At that age, he was aloof, quiet, yet bold and unrestrained. I loved him so passionately back then that a few words at a banquet were all I needed to recognize him. The man before me isn't the 23-year-old him. Shinjue was also looking at me. The car's light was off, only the street lights casting shadows inside. In the dim light, his eyes shifted through expressions: surprise, pain, joy, regret, all blending into an indistinct haze. "Certainly. The last thing I want is clarity, Yang Yang. I knew you would. Please don't call me that." I looked at him coldly. "Mr. Shen, our current relationship only warrants the titles of alumni and senior." Shinjue's eyes reddened suddenly, just as they did when he first met me. "Yang Yang, I know you've been wronged. That day, with the heavy snow, I was blinded by anger and insisted that you come to talk in person. I didn't really want to break up with you then." "Please don't bring up past lives," I interrupted him. "Shinjue, it's not easy to start over. From now on, let's go our separate ways. You marry the one you love, and I'll follow my own path. Please don't come looking for me again. Yang Yang, don't say things you'll regret." Shinjue grabbed my hand. "You said it's not easy to start over. Didn't you always tell me to let go?" In our past life, I owed you once, and you owed me once, we're even now. This life, you've realized your mistake, and what are you saying? I almost doubted my own ears. Realized my mistake, Yang Yang. I was really happy you called the ambulance for me. Shinjua's chin slightly lifted, his gaze fixed on my face. It seemed sincere and straightforward. The affection we've shared since childhood shouldn't be marred by such vile means. Enough. I pulled my hand away. Shinjua, you are simply beyond help. I got out of the car and slammed the door. I never expected Shinjua to know the truth. After I died, my soul wandered for a while, floating up and down, sometimes conscious, sometimes not, but I saw it with my own eyes. Shinjua proposing to Qin Wei. The diamond ring was even bigger than the one Qin Wei had, and the scene was more lively than the wedding he and I had. At that moment, my soul completely dissipated. Shinjua truly loves Qin Wei. How could he bear to doubt her? But I didn't expect that when I pushed him away, his only reaction would be that I had realized my mistake. Indeed, I had said I didn't for so many years, and starting over, he still chose not to believe a single word. My phone vibrated. Xiaolin sent me a link, latest beta version, get on board, me, right away. I must be crazy. Spending another minute on this matter is a disrespect to the billions involved, but clearly, I wasn't the only one eyeing that billion. In the next 10 years, while traditional industries declined, the gaming industry soared, especially mobile games, as smartphones continued to evolve. As someone who had been reborn, it was only natural for Shinjua to eye this opportunity, so, I often ran into Shinjua in the city. He didn't bother me, but somehow he got my phone number and occasionally sent me messages. Like now, stay away from Xiaolin, he doesn't have good intentions towards you. Xiaolin was sitting right next to me when I read this message. I let out a cold laugh. He's trying to be the good guy now. I shifted, sitting closer to me. He even put his arm around my shoulder. This was a promotional event for a new mobile game. There were quite a few investors who had come. I elbowed Xiaolin. Instead, he leaned in close to my ear. Little Jiangzi, how about we really get together and drive him mad? Me. President Xia, stop being so childish. Who says I'm being childish? I've been an adult for a while now. Before he could finish his sentence, someone forcefully pulled me up by the hand and started dragging me out. 18, Jiang Yang, can't you hear what I'm saying anymore? Shinzhou looked very angry, even more so than when he tore up my diary years ago, but he quickly calmed down. His gaze was a mix of helplessness and sorrow. Yang, he steadied my shoulders. I know you resent me for using your parents' company to manipulate you, but now, I just want to carve out my own path. My gaming company is nearly ready, and I'll soon hand over full control to you. Okay, quit your job at Huayang, and I prepared the villa in Lanshan for you. It's all set up according to your preferences. Yang, let's not miss out on each other again in this lifetime. It took me a moment to grasp his intention. Was he thinking about reconciling with me? Perhaps the sarcasm in my eyes was too intense. As Shinzhou subdued his emotions, he sighed. Yang, I know you're still angry with me. You don't know what happened after you passed away. Shinzhou reached out to touch my cheek, his eyes beginning to redden. Can you give me some more time, just a little more time for me to sort things out? After all, we owe Qin Wei. I thought I was prepared, mentally, from last time, but hearing his last words, I couldn't help but laugh. Yes, we owe Qin Wei a lot. I brushed off Shinzhou's hand and looked up at him. So, you go and repay it with your lifetime, for lifetimes to come, and never look back. Yang, I turned and walked away. Yang, wait a bit longer, Shinzhou said firmly from behind. I will give you an explanation. 19, Shinzhou didn't show up again. Xiaoyu said that he took Qin Wei on a world tour. Qin Wei's social media was filled with happy posts every day. As long as he wasn't in Jing City, I was happy to have some peace. After nearly half a year of exploration, our first mobile game finally took shape. Honestly, this was the first time in 2 lifetimes that I was so focused on something. Xiaolin might be a bit erratic normally, but he was extremely serious when it came to work. The entire Huayang team was young and vibrant. Being with them often made me feel like I was just a recent college graduate. It didn't feel like I had lived those extra 10 grueling years. Jiang Bao, play it again. Are you sure this version is really fun? I must say, young people have a lot of ideas, now, at the company. They call me Little Jiangzi, Little Yangzi, Jiang Bao, all sorts of names. It's quite fun. I nodded earnestly. Actually, I wasn't much into games before. it was all Xiaolin's influence. I've added a few skins. I'll integrate with the platform today. Let's go with this version. After sending off the final version, a young designer patted my shoulder. Jiangbao, good luck. Today, I took the game to interface with the platform. If all goes well, this game could be online very soon. I grabbed my computer and sent a message to Xiaolin. At such an important time, he was certainly going as well. However, since he was still a student, we arranged to meet outside the platform company's office. Due to the psychological trauma from a car accident in my past life, I didn't drive. Sitting on the subway, I actually felt somewhat nervous. I only knew that Flower Style later became one of the leading mobile game giants, comparable to that famous Penguin company. But I was not sure how smoothly their start was. This project was the result of over half a year's hard work from the whole team, and naturally, I hoped it would be a smashing success. Yet unexpectedly, before I even reached my destination, just as I exited the subway, I encountered a roadblock. Shenzhou's game company, which Qin Wei also had a hand in, operates within the same industry, where there are only a handful of platforms. It wasn't difficult for her to find out about my itinerary. She didn't seem as carefree and joyful as Xia Yu had described. At least, she seemed far less arrogant than when she used to flaunt her diamond ring in front of me. I glanced at her briefly, then looked away, intending to ignore her. But obviously, she was here for me. Jian Yang, you've won. You must be very happy, right? I had no idea what she was talking about. I quickened my pace, but she followed close behind. Jian Yang, what makes you better than me? You're just from a moderately well-off family. Your parents own a small company. Isn't it just because you knew Shenzhou a few years earlier that you've been flattering him all along? Jian Yang, are you playing hard to get with Shenzhou? I glanced at my watch, not wanting to engage in conversation with her. The two old folks from Shen's family are completely charmed by you. They only recognize you. Now even Shenzhou is on your side. Qin Wei suddenly grabbed my wrist. Jian Yang, stop pretending to be so aloof and indifferent. Your feelings for Shenzhou, you think I can't see them? Miss Qin, I'm not familiar with you. I pulled away from her. Whatever issues you have with Shenzhou, please discuss them with him directly. We're not familiar. So, you're close with Shenzhou. It was me who dated Shenzhou first. You're the third party. I clenched my teeth and refused to argue with her. Just one more street crossing, and Xiaolin was waiting for me on the other side. But then Qin Wei grabbed hold of me and cried, Miss Jiang, Shenzhou wants to break up with me. No matter how much I beg him, he's determined to leave me. He clearly loved me so much. He praised me for being gentle and kind. He bought me a house and a car. He even took me on a world tour. He once said he would marry me. Now he says all these were just to compensate me. Miss Jiang, please, I can't live without him. Qin Wei already looked worn out, and her crying now made her appear even more disheveled. During the rush hour, passers-by all avoided us. I was extremely irritated, but the light hadn't turned green yet, so I had to continue enduring. Qin Wei then grabbed my laptop bag. Miss Jiang, since you're not interested in Shenzhou, you should make things clear with him. There were important things in my computer bag, and I instinctively moved back. But then, as if she suddenly discovered my weakness, Jian Yang, you'll never be able to get rid of me. Her tone was all too familiar. I could almost see the smug smile at the corner of her mouth. She yanked hard on my laptop bag, and just as I pulled back, she let go and abruptly stepped back. Then came the loud screech of brakes. I had forgotten, Qin Wei was a gambler. In my past life, she gambled on Shenzhou, believing her, letting a lie stand between me and Shenzhou for a whole 10 years. This lifetime, she was prepared to gamble with her own life, betting on Shenzhou's conscience. Shenzhou has always had a conscience. Towards her, he has a conscience, but this time, his calculated plan might not go as she wishes. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. I stood in front of Qin Wei's hospital bed. I shouldn't have argued with her on the roadside, shouldn't have held on when she tried to grab my computer. Oh, she wasn't trying to steal the computer, she was just emotional and grabbed my hand while talking. Xiaolin bumped me with his elbow. Dissatisfied, Qin Wei was hit by a vehicle. Luckily, it was near a red light, and since we were not on the main road when we struggled, the vehicle had slowed down. The car braked in time, only breaking one of Qin Wei's ribs and a leg. The surveillance footage wasn't clear, only showing that she had a conflict with me, making it hard to tell who was right or wrong. Xiaolin, who was across the street at that time, saw everything clearly, so he was dissatisfied with my apology. He doesn't understand. In front of Shenzhou, an explanation is just making excuses. He only ever believes what he wants to believe. 10 years have been enough for me to learn my lesson, sure enough. As soon as I voiced my apology, Qin Wei's tearful expression stiffened, and Shinzhou stopped what he was about to say. Miss Qin was injured because of me. Let me stay and take care of her with you during these days. I turned to look at Shinzhou. As we left, Xiaolin became even more discontent. Have you been called Jiangbao too many times, and your brain turned into a sauce bun? She timed her fall perfectly. What does it have to do with you? She clearly wants to cling to Mr. Shen. Why don't you just let them be, lock it down and be done? I glanced at my wrist, which Qin Wei had just reddened by pulling. Do you remember the last time we played a game and encountered an annoying ghost, always sticking to us, beat us up, ran away, and just when it mattered, popped out again to hit us? How did you say to deal with such people back then? Xiaolin, use the ultimate move, finish them off. I nodded, use the ultimate move, finish them off. I am very competent. Working from 8 to 5, more punctual than a job, I finally understood the pleasure Qin Wei felt when she did those things. It turns out making someone you dislike unhappy can be so satisfying. Ah Zhou, my leg hurts so much. Shinzhou was about to get up. I held him back. She's crying from the pain. Should we call a doctor? Shinzhou nodded, calling for the doctor. Ah Zhou, I'm so thirsty. Shinzhou got up. I held him back. The nurse is attentive, let her go. Ah Zhou. It's so boring lying here, could you read to me? I got up, I'll do it. After several times, Shinzhou also realized I was doing it on purpose. He even seemed somewhat happy. Yang, I've always said I would explain things to you. I've already broken up with Qin Wei. After she's discharged, I will give her a sum of compensation, and then we will be even. Sometimes, when it was just the two of us in the hospital room, he looked at me with eyes brimming with joy. Then we can go home together. Do you want to live in Lawn Mountain or Ping Courtyard? I've also thought about the wedding. This time I looked up. How much compensation do you plan to give her? 1 million. After all, it was our fault. The doctor said her leg. 1 million. I tugged at the corner of my lips. That's good. Sometimes Xiaolin would also come over, under the guise of work. He didn't speak, just buried his head and texted me. This filial piety between mother and son. What are you scheming? I replied, it's always calm before the storm. 24. Actually, it wasn't a big move. As the day of discharge approached, Qin Wei became more anxious. I knew her original plan, except for Xiaolin, whom I had seen with my own eyes. No one would believe that someone could joke with their own life, so, like in my previous life, I became her scapegoat, and like before, Shinzhou and I would argue because of her. The difference was, she wouldn't leave. She took advantage of Shinzhou's old feelings and guilt, feeling entitled to demand from him. Perhaps she even hoped to sustain some disability, giving Shinzhou more reason to feel guilty towards her for life. But I was not angry. Before Shinzhou could even speak up, I took the initiative to apologize. I didn't argue with Shinzhou either. Even in her presence, I was all smiles, warming up the feelings between us. She became insecure. She worried that she would be abandoned once she was discharged. I really wanted to comfort her. After all, there was still 10 million. Shinzhou truly loved her. Of course, whether she could get it depended on her own skills. 3 days before Qin Wei's discharge, Shinzhou, all smiles, began discussing the color of the curtains at home with me. Shinzhou, I won't go back with you. I put down my breakfast calmly and looked at him. I won't marry you again, won't love you again. I don't even want to see you again. Do you know why? Shinzhou followed me back to the room, seemingly in a daze. I called him again, Brother Shen. Indeed, I used to call him that when I was a child. During these days, I called him that in front of Qin Wei too, a nickname more nauseating to her than her Ah Zhou. Your aunt called and said there's been a thief in your neighborhood. Let's go check your apartment. Upon hearing let's go back, Shinzhou's eyes lit up. But how could Qin Wei agree? She hadn't been discharged yet. Shinzhou hadn't mentioned any compensation to her. If I took Shinzhou away, she might end up losing everything. Brother Shen, shall we go? I tilted my head to look at Shinzhou. If we don't leave today, we'll never go back. Shinzhou came over to hold me. Actually, we don't need to go back. Ah Zhou, your apartment has surveillance. Qin Wei hurriedly sat up, shouting for the nurse to bring her computer. Ah Zhou, I forgot to tell you before, I was worried about thieves in the apartment, so I had already installed surveillance. You can see what it looks like now just by turning on the computer. I watched as Shinzhou's face turned pale by degrees, staring at Qin Wei. His eyes shot disbelief. you said, who installed the surveillance. Qin Wei was completely oblivious. I had it installed last year. The video is connected to my computer, let's watch it now. I then asked Xiaolin, who had specifically come for the spectacle, Mr. Xia, I suddenly can't remember. Are our game accounts, nicknames, and avatars unique? Xiaolin, of course not. Then it's easy to register another account with the same nickname and avatar. Of course, I remember it's the same for WeChat, correct? Alright, Xiaolin, we can leave now. See? It was just that simple, simple enough to be sad. 25. Shinzhou appeared before me again a week later. In those 7 days, it seemed like 7 years had passed for Shinzhou. He had become terribly thin, he looked disheveled, it was raining, he stood there with his head down, soaked through by the rain. It seemed he hadn't expected me to come down so quickly. Surprise flickered in his eyes when he saw me, quickly replaced by a frantic sense of guilt. I'm sorry. A 10-year overdue apology finally came out of his mouth. I'm sorry, Yang Yang. His body trembling, he hugged me, his hot tears falling onto my collar. I'm sorry, Yang Yang, all these years, so many times. He choked up, unable to continue. It's all in the past, I said. No, it's my fault, it's all my fault, Yang Yang. He held me tighter. Can you accept my apology, please? I shook my head. Shinzhou. It's too late. Shinzhou suddenly began to cry. But I love you, Yang Yang. After you left, I realized how much I loved you. I continued shaking my head, pushing him away, and stepped back, looking up at him. Shinzhou, think about it, was that really love? Shinzhou, things have always been too smooth for you. He could command the winds and the waves, always getting what he sought. Think about it, do you love me? Or is it just because you can't have me? Shinzhou didn't hesitate. It's you. I truly loved you, Yang Yang. I thought it through in my past life, it was, but I don't love you anymore. I looked at him. Shinzhou, I won't marry you again, I won't love you again, I even don't want to see you again. It's not a joke, not something said in anger. Are you still not going to believe what I say, like you did 10 years ago? Shinzhou staggered a step, his face turning ashen. Go back, you'll catch a cold, and your mother will worry. I withdrew my gaze, turned around. Before I walked out of the alley, I heard crying behind me. I didn't want to see Shinzhou so downcast. I would rather see the 23-year-old Shinzhou, the one I once deeply loved, the one with a sparkle in his eyes. But life always brings such helplessness. 10 years ago, I would have jumped for joy at his words, and probably spent the whole night sleepless. 10 years later, I just listened indifferently. I went back to my room, played a game, and then slept. Shinzhou fell ill nonetheless. The elders of the Shin family took turns calling me, saying he was delirious with fever. Mumbling my name, even my mom called to sigh. Weren't you the one who said that little Zhua had a girlfriend and you didn't want to make it hard on yourself? That's why we kept you in the dark about him being in the same city. Now what's all this fuss about? I heard he broke up with that girlfriend. Yang Yang, didn't you always love little Zhua the most? Maybe, Mom, it's all in the past. One of the biggest mistakes of my past life, the rift between Shinzhou and me, was always hidden from my family. At first, there was hope, thinking there might be a chance for Shinzhou and me. Then my father fell ill. Shinzhou was always his proudest son-in-law, and I couldn't bring myself to tell him. It was only after witnessing the tragedy of parents burying their child did I understand. What son-in-law? What company would consider their precious daughter to be more important? So, from the very beginning of this life, I have been open and honest about my thoughts. Sure enough, both my mom and dad supported me. They just wanted me to be happy. Shinzhou had been sick for over a month, and his mother begged me to talk to him. Throughout those 10 years, his parents treated me very well, so I didn't refuse. Shinzhou was crying softly on the other side of the phone. Shinzhou, I said gently, don't dwell on it too much. I was also at fault for the way things ended in our past life. The mistake was not loving myself before loving someone else. The mistake was repeatedly ignoring the lifebuoys around me. The mistake was giving up the whole world for one man, underneath an avalanche. No snowflake is innocent. A ridiculous lie crafted a decade of tragedy, and I cannot escape blame, but I can correct my mistakes. After Shinzhou recovered, he sued Qin Wei. He had always firmly believed that his change of heart had wronged Qin Wei. Before they broke up, he gave her a substantial amount of material compensation. Now, he seems to have changed his mind about that, wanting to take all those things back. I didn't pay much attention to this. Our first game has launched. It's been receiving continuous positive reviews. and revenues have been climbing steadily. Every day, I wake up to check the data and go to sleep thinking about new games. Occasionally, seeing someone playing our game on the subway can make me happy for a long time. It shows that there are many joys in life, not just those brought by love. When our second game launched, it shot to the top of the download charts on its first day. The overwhelming sense of achievement filled me completely, making the whole world seem wonderful. I've settled down in Beijing and even moved my parents here. My life has been drifting further and further from its original path. Shenzhou didn't disappear from my world immediately. He came looking for me for a while. He didn't talk to me. He just followed me to and from work. It seems he has finished his lawsuit with Qin Wei. Xiaoyu told me that Qin Wei didn't get much money, and her leg was indeed disabled from the last car accident. She asked the court for compensation, but it was denied. But having finished entangling with Qin Wei and then starting to bother me wasn't pleasant. Most of the time, I ignored him. The road isn't owned by my family, he can walk it however he likes. Occasionally annoyed, I would turn around and scold him. Shenzhou, did you come back just to follow me like this? He actually responded directly, yes. After that, I didn't want to talk to him anymore. The last time I saw him, it was another rainy day. The rain in the late autumn was like fine needles of ice. I didn't want him to get sick and have his mother calling me repeatedly. So I bought him an umbrella. He leaned at the entrance of an alley and suddenly asked me, Yang, after everything I've done to you in the past, do you also think I'm cruel? Now saying I like you, does that disgust you? I ruined your happiness. In an instant, I felt like I was back to that year, our wedding night. It was also at this age, in such an autumn, amidst the festive joy. He scolded me with a cold face. Yang, your cruelty is chilling, your affection disgusts me. You so wanted to be with me. I'll grant you that. You ruined my happiness, and you will never find happiness in this lifetime. Yes, I looked up, the fine rain falling into my pupils. Shenzhou, your cruelty is chilling, your affection disgusts me, you ruined my happiness, for this lifetime. I paused, looking into his eyes. Shenzhou, I hope you find happiness. He trembled violently, his whole back hunched, bending at the waist. After that, I never saw him again. Another year quickly passed. I remember in my past life, during this year, Qin Wei gloriously went abroad to marry and flaunted her achievements in front of me before leaving. Guess who I just saw? She looked so haggard I almost didn't recognize her. It was only when I saw her limping that I was sure. It really was Qin Wei. She's actually fallen to the point of serving dishes in a small restaurant. What are you looking at? I turned off Xiaoyu's message and put away my phone. Nothing. You haven't secretly started a new romance, have you? Xia Lin propped up his cheek in an exaggerated manner. Little dumpling, the weather is so nice today, why don't we take our online romance offline? I looked at him helplessly. Xia Lin raised both hands. Alright, I get it, men are not as enticing as money, let's go. He pressed the gas pedal. Little CEO Xia will first aim for a cool 100 billion. I couldn't help but laugh. It was the height of spring. The sunlight was just perfect. Life is a series of multiple-choice questions. This time, I won't make the wrong choice. Shenzhou side story. 1. When I received the call from the police, I was momentarily deafened. A sharp ringing in my ears nearly pierced my brain, and by the time I regained my senses, the person on the other end was shouting, Mr. Shen, are you alright? Please calm yourself before coming to identify your wife's body. 2. Jiangyang is dead, because on a snowy day, I asked her to come and discuss our divorce in person. Qin Wei always comforted me, saying, it's not your fault, she didn't drive well, how can you blame yourself? But I knew it was my fault. 3. Jiangyang and I weren't always like this. Ever since we were young, she was obedient and gentle, liking to quietly stay by my side. Big brother Shen, can you make me a little rabbit? Big brother Shen, can you explain this problem to me? Big brother Shen, can you wait and walk home from school with me? We were very close. My phone was full of her photos, and every time I saw the character Yang in a book, I would subconsciously circle it. It felt so familiar and dear, so much so that when I first met Qin Wei and she told me her nickname was Yang, I felt an affinity. 4. I met Qin Wei in college. When she was surrounded by a group of thugs, I stepped in to save her. After that, she often appeared around me, quiet, much like Jiangyang used to be. She had seen Jiangyang on my phone. She's so beautiful. Is she your girlfriend? I naturally replied, no, she's my sister. 5. I always thought of Jiangyang as only a sister. Whenever my family talked about marrying her, I felt annoyed. who marries their own sister, having a life arranged for you breeds rebellion. So when Qin Wei cried and told me that my mother had asked her to leave, I held her and said, I will marry you, I only want to marry you. 6. When did things start to change? Perhaps even I don't know. When Qin Wei showed me those chat logs, was my rage only because she wanted me to break up with Qin Wei, not because she said what does it matter if I ruin him, if I can't have him, no one can. I went through with the wedding just because I was angry, determined to torment her for life, not because, deep down, I wasn't averse to her being my wife. I realized these things actually after Qin Wei left and went back to her country. I accidentally overheard her on the phone, crying to a friend. I knew it, he didn't like me that much, he didn't even touch me. Do you know, he never touched me even when we were dating. He really liked Jiang Yang, otherwise, who these days marries just because they spent a night together. 7. It was a call from Jiang Yang, 3 days before she wanted to divorce me. By then, I already felt something was off. Over the years, Jiang Yang and I constantly argued, initially about her dishonorable actions, which she refused to admit doing. But I had seen the chat logs, the video angle was from the apartment's surveillance, the only people who knew the apartment's password were me, her, and Qin Wei. In the 3rd year of our marriage, one day, she suddenly asked me, why don't you suspect that Qin Wei did this? I found it amusing. She did this, why, what good does it do? Qin Wei broke up with me only because she was threatened by her. After the breakup, she became depressed and attempted suicide several times. She had no motive to do that. After that incident, Jiang Yang never mentioned it again. Later, we argued over trivial matters. Qin Wei did not marry well. She often called me from overseas, crying about her life. If it weren't for Jiang Yang's actions back then, Qin Wei wouldn't have ended up like this. Every time I think about it, I can't have a proper conversation with Jiang Yang. Why did the girl, who was as obedient as a rabbit at first, have a different face behind her back? Before Qin Wei returned, Jiang Yang and I were still arguing, because I found her birth control pills. She didn't care about my future or my feelings, she even refused to have children with me. What was recorded in those diaries was not love but an obsessive possessiveness. After years of arguing, Qin Wei finally came back. I thought I would be happy, but after being together with Qin Wei, just like she said, I didn't even want to touch her. Could I have always liked Jiang Yang? I think of the reassurance I felt when I woke up at night and held her in my arms. I think of the comfort I felt every time I came home and saw her quietly in the house. I think of the face that frequently appeared in my mind when I was with Qin Wei. Turns out, I've always liked Jiang Yang, but Jiang Yang wants to divorce me. Her tone was so calm, convinced that I would agree. Come here, let's talk face to face. I could not agree to divorce her. She sighed, I have no other demands, I just want my parents' company, which belongs to you. I won't take anything else. To leave me, she didn't even fight for the family property. In a rage, I said, after today, no more discussion. Just with that statement, Jiang Yang died on a snowy road. Impossible. I couldn't possibly like Jiang Yang. If I liked Jiang Yang, how could I have been cold to her for a whole decade? If I liked Jiang Yang, how could I have been responsible for her death? The one I liked was clearly Qin Wei. The whole world knew I loved Qin Wei. For Qin Wei, I defied my family, neglected my wife, and remained childless for many years. I pretended as if nothing was wrong. I didn't even attend Jiang Yang's funeral. I continued to be inseparable with Qin Wei, proposed to her, and prepared a grand wedding. I loved Qin Wei, but when Qin Wei smiled at me in her wedding dress, I joyfully embraced her. Yang Yang, you're back. On the eve of the wedding, I broke down. Jiang Yang's shadow was everywhere. We grew up together. Apart from the few years in college, I had never been separated from her for more than 3 days. I remember every expression of hers at every age. I think back to every harsh word I said to her over those 10 years. Why was I so harsh on her? It was just a video and a few harsh words. She was 2 years younger than me. Why couldn't I let go of one mistake for 10 years, the cruel one? It was clearly me. I wandered through the city like a walking corpse. Guilt and regret poisoned me, gnawing at my flesh day and night. Qin Wei came to me crying again. She said, aren't you going to marry me? Everyone knows I'm going to marry you. Aren't you going to marry me? You said it yourself. You said you love me, that you were going to marry me. All I could do was apologize to her. If there's a next life, I'll repay everything I owe you. If only there really was a next life, I would give 3 lifetimes for a chance to start over. I don't know how much time passed, but it snowed again. I lay on the cold tracks, watching the snow fall like goose feathers as the train rushed towards me. It was just as cold the day Jianyang died. If I could do it all over again, I would truly love Jianyang. If I could do it all over again, I would make up for all the regrets. Back then, I didn't know that later, I would indeed get a chance to start over, yet it was just a one-time, even more misguided beginning. Story 2, in my previous life, I resorted to underhanded tactics to coerce Lu Conwen into taking responsibility for me and marrying me. I seduced him with my charms to the point where he was utterly infatuated and couldn't resist my body, which prevented him from seeking out his childhood sweetheart time and again. Unfortunately, back then I didn't understand that those who manipulate with seduction often see their affection and grace fade away. A forced marriage call from the childhood sweetheart made him abandon me on a deserted island thousands of miles away without a second thought. That night, a tsunami ravaged the island, and I was forever buried beneath the sea. Reborn, I find myself straddling his abs. Fortunately, I haven't made any grave mistakes yet. I'm sorry, I slept with the wrong person. I'll leave immediately, I blurted out. Lu Tsongwen's eyes shattered with emotion, his voice trembling and hoarse. Ji Yunru, other than me, who else do you want to sleep with? His grip on my slender ankles left faint red marks, trapping my fleeing body. Lu Congwen, let me go, I demanded, ignoring my pleas. He forcefully dragged me back beneath him. Ji Yunru, wasn't it you who drugged me? What's this, playing hard to get now? His expression was dark, his lips tightly pursed. The tense line of his jaw and the bulging veins on his neck were filled with intense energy, as if he could shatter me in the next second. It hurts, I murmured softly, tears of pain following. Lu Congwen eased his actions but still showed no intention of letting me go. His rough fingertips gently massaged the corner of my eye, his gaze dim, his voice slightly hoarse, dressed so provocatively. Isn't it to seduce me? Having been his lover for 7 years in my previous life, I knew well that his tense body was on the brink of succumbing to his desires, ready to devour me completely. Then, we would be unexpectedly discovered by a high school classmate, forcing Lu Congwen to get engaged to me. After that, to win his heart, I had no choice but to use my looks and figure as bait, constantly trying to captivate him. Yet, he always remained indifferent, delaying our marriage. Thinking of my previous life, the suffocating sensation of the cold seawater filling my throat made me shiver, a chill running down my spine. The love-struck fool I was in my previous life had been killed by the seawater. I would not make the same mistakes again. I tried to push him away with both hands, urgently explaining, I'm sorry, Lu Congwen, I slept with the wrong person, let go of me, and I'll leave immediately. Hearing my words, Lu Tsongwen's eyes flickered, but he quickly regained his composure. He lowered his body, his hot breath on my lips, a hint of mockery in his voice. Ji Yunru, other than me, who else do you want to sleep with? I was at a loss for words. Lu Tsongwen's relentless pursuit since our high school days was well known throughout the school and had become a widely known joke among our classmates. Under such circumstances, who else could I possibly sleep with? I was racking my brain to come up with a name when the door was knocked. A gentle, cool voice came through. Congwen, are you in there? It was Ji Yunue, my half-sister and also Lu Tsongwen's childhood sweetheart. He was the one she couldn't stop thinking about, her unattainable moonlight. In a previous life, after getting engaged to me, Lu Congwen remained entangled with Ji Yunue. Whenever Ji Yunue called him in the dead of night, frightened by thunder, Lu Congwen would drive for hours just to be by her side, blinded by my love for him. I resorted to the foolish tactic of seductively clinging to him, begging for his affection each time he reached for his car keys. This approach worked, until our honeymoon when Ji Yunue claimed that her family was forcing her into an unwanted marriage and she decided to resist even if it meant death. Ultimately, Lu Congwen left me behind. Congwen, are you in the room? The class monitor went to get the room card and will be back soon. Unlike my naturally seductive demeanor, Ji Yunue always resembled the cool, distant moon among clouds, her personality and voice carrying a fragile chill, the kind that evokes a protective instinct in men. In moments of passion, Lu Congwen would whisper in my ear, Ruru, your beauty stirs up a desire in me to dominate, to see you in pain and tears. Lu Tsongwen's friend once said, Ji Yunue is the kind of respectable girl one marries, but Ji Yunru is only good for a fling, not for marriage. Previously, due to Ji Yunue's indifferent demeanor towards everything, including Lu Congwen, I failed to notice the connection and affection between them. I intervened. I broke up the lovers, and it cost me my life. In this life, let everything go back to its original path. Lu Songwen's body grew hotter, his gaze more intense, and his lips fervently met my collarbone, like a scorching rain. Lu Kongwen, come to your senses, I'm not Ji Yunhue, let me go. He seemed irritated, unwilling to listen, and fiercely bit my lip, silencing my protests. In despair, I kicked him hard. Part 2, Ji Yunru, if you dare leave, I'll kill you. Lu Kongwen, bent over in pain, roared from behind. I paused, then leapt out the window, staying meant deaf. I found the class monitor and had her deliver the room card to Ji Yunhue before leaving, creating a chance for them to be alone. If Ji Yunhue couldn't push Lu Kongwen away, they'd end up together by the end of the night. Then, my father would ensure justice for Ji Yunhue, making Lu Kongwen marry her. Perhaps then, Lu Kongwen would be grateful, and I might escape the control of the Ji family. Having arranged all this, I leisurely returned to the graduation party. Today was the first day to check university entrance exam results. In a past life, both Lu Kongwen and Ji Yunhue were top students who got into the prestigious Capital University together. To be with Lu Kongwen, I studied tirelessly, significantly boosting my academic scores, plus a bonus for my dance skills, just enough to join the dance program at Capital University. Lu Kongwen and I got engaged over the summer and his family bought us a house near the university. I devoted myself to creating a tender home life for Lu Kongwen, neglecting my own studies. Ji Yunhue, maintaining her cool, top student persona, remained the perpetual beloved ache in Lu Songwen's heart. I returned to the party room, and as I sat down, the teacher raised a glass to me. Ji Yunru, congratulations on finally making it to the same university as Lu Kongwen. You're a brave girl in my eyes, daring to do anything for the boy you love. But as someone who's been through it all, I must tell you to chase love bravely. But don't forget to enrich yourself and always be a clear-headed, independent woman, the teacher advised. Holding my glass, my eyes suddenly welled up with tears. It's only after being reborn that I realized how profound my teacher's words were. It's a pity that in my past life, I never had the chance to hear them. Even if I had, I wouldn't have grasped their deep meaning. Now that fate has given me a second chance, I am determined not to let my teacher down. Thank you, teacher. I will remember your words, I said, before I could compose myself. The class president hurried into the room and whispered in my ear. I gave the keys to Ji Yunhue and left, but Lu Kongwen has called an ambulance. I frowned in confusion. Is Lu Kongwen foolish? He's missing such a good opportunity. The class president, Xiao Qiao, a girl who loved gossip, immediately pulled me to eavesdrop next to Lu Songwen's room. Crash, it was the sound of a water glass shattering. It seemed that Lu Kongwen was beginning to lose control of himself. Then came Ji Yunhue's soft, frail voice. Kongwen, I'm willing, please stop torturing yourself. It hurts me to see you like this. Lu Kongwen struggled to speak. Yunhue, stay away from me. Ji Yunhue rushed to hug him. Why, Kongwen, I don't need you to take responsibility. I just can't bear to see you suffer. Lu Kongwen forcefully pushed her away. Yunhue, please don't come any closer. I'm not in my right mind. I don't want to hurt you. I gave a bitter smile. So that was it. No wonder they say love is like a hand that reaches out only to pull back again. Because he didn't love me, in my past life, Lu Kongwen pressed me down without hesitation, ignoring my pleas and tormenting me over and over again, nearly leaving me with psychological scars. But with his beloved Ji Yunhue, even though he was nearly fainting from the pain, he still desperately tried to stay conscious because he couldn't bear to touch her. Medical staff arrived and started heading this way. I took Xiao Qiao and turned to leave. I was sure now, I no longer loved Lu Kongwen, yet, seeing his attitude towards Ji Yunhue felt like a stone was pressing on my chest. I couldn't breathe. This must be the melancholy of unrequited love. After that gathering, I didn't go out again. At the dinner table, my dad told my stepmom that Lu Kongwen, the only son of the Lu family, had been drugged and hospitalized. My stepmom was shocked. Who would dare to drug him? Don't they know about the Lu family's formidable power? My dad sighed deeply. Mr. Lu has ordered severe punishment for the person responsible, but young Master Lu refuses to say who it was. My stepmom said, well, why bother with all that? This is a perfect opportunity to get closer to the Lu family. Yunhue, why don't you and your mom go visit Lu Kongwen at the hospital later? Aren't you his classmate? Try to find some common topics with him. See if you can develop a relationship with this heir of a wealthy family. My stepmom smiled cunningly. Ji Yunhue obediently nodded. Dad then said, why don't you take Yunru with you too? With both going, the chances of success might be higher. My stepmom scoffed. Why bring her? Look at her. all dolled up. Do you think the Liu family elders would fancy such a vulgar vixen? My father bowed his head and said nothing. Offering me no defense, I put down my chopsticks. I have errands to run today. I won't be going. I went to the immigration office to apply for a passport. When I returned, my stepmom was sitting on the couch, visibly upset, venting to my dad, Yunue, and I carefully selected several gifts to take to the hospital to visit young Master Liu. But guess what happened? They told us that all visits were politely declined. I told the security guard at the door that we were from the Ji family of Haiqing, and that my daughter Yunue and Lu Kongwen were classmates. The guard said he would check inside. After a while, the guard came back out, asked for our names, and then went back inside to report. A bit later, he came out again and told us that the young master needed to rest now, we could leave the gifts, and he would personally come to thank us once he had recovered. Isn't this just leading us on? Said the stepmother, visibly upset and breathing heavily. Dad comforted her by rubbing her back. It's good that he accepted your gifts. I heard that recently everyone trying to visit young Master Liu was turned away, and not even their gifts were accepted. The fact that he accepted ours shows that Yunue still holds significant influence. Upon hearing this, the stepmother's face lit up with joy. Really? Does Yunue really have that much clout? Does this mean there's hope for her to marry into the Liu family? There's hope, definitely. Didn't the young master say he would visit us personally in a few days? What does that tell you? It shows he's interested in Yunue, Dad said, his eyes crinkling with a smile. Yunue, your dad hasn't spoiled you for nothing. This is giving your old man a lot of pride. Once you marry into the Liu family, our status in Haiqing will rise even further. Sitting across on the sofa, Yunue blushed and shyly called out, Dad, oh, my daughter is shy. He chuckled. The family was filled with laughter and joy. Of course, this happiness had nothing to do with me. In my first year of high school, my mother died of cancer. Before the mourning period was even over, my father brought home Wu Qing, a woman from outside, along with her daughter Yunue, who was only 2 months younger than me. That's when I realized that for over a decade, while relying on my mother's family's influence to build his career, my father had been supporting a mistress on the side. With a stepmother came a stepfather. My father, once utterly devoted to me out of fear of my mother, had become entirely devoted to Yunue alone. He neglected me completely. All household responsibilities were handed over to Wu Qing, who pinched pennies on my living expenses and mocked me, with my father turning a blind eye. After Yunue transferred to my class, she and Lu Kongwen, who knew each other, became particularly close, which made me incredibly jealous. It turned out that the country villa where my father used to support Yunue and her mother was right next to Lu Tsungwen's grandmother's house. Every year when Lu Kongwen came down for vacation, he would play with Yunue. He was originally saddened by Yunue's departure. Unexpectedly, she transferred directly to our class and became his deskmate. Truly, fate can tie people together across thousands of miles, but without it, even those close by can be strangers. In my past life, I foolishly fell in love with a man who was not mine. I deserved my tragic end. Returning to my room, I sent out an email. Professor Steve, I am delighted to be your student. I have prepared my passport and will soon head to the UK. In my past life, all my life goals revolved around Lu Kongwen, causing me to abandon my own talents. The London Dance Academy noticed my dance videos online and recognized my award-winning history. You should be the one to make the final decision, extending an olive branch to me. But to attend Jingda University with Lu Kongwen, I firmly declined the professor's invitation. This life, I have come to my senses. It was a world-renowned institution that many dancers dream of. In this lifetime, I must seize the opportunity to shine brightly on the dazzling stage. After sending the email, I took a bath, slipped into a silk camisole dress, and comfortably lay down on the bed. Feeling sleepy, the ringtone of my phone went off, and without looking to see who it was, I squinted and answered. After the call connected, the person on the other end didn't speak for a long time. Confused, I looked at the screen. Oh no, I had accidentally answered a video call. On the screen, Lu Tsungwen's gaze was obscure and unclear. Seeing me look up, he awkwardly turned his face away. I quickly adjusted my disheveled straps and pulled the blanket over my exposed shoulders. What do you need? I asked, feeling a bit guilty. I hadn't expected that the medicine would land him in the hospital. Was he going to settle scores with me? Ji Yunru, I've been lying in the hospital for 2 days, and you haven't come to see me. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but his tone seemed slightly aggrieved. I shook my head. I must have heard wrong. Such a proud man like him feeling aggrieved. Who do I think I am? Ji Yunue was stopped at the door by you. I would have faced the same rejection, so I didn't waste the cab fare. It's different with you. I told them to let you in if you came. Lu Tsongwen's voice carried a clumsy eagerness. Me, how am I different? Because you were the one who gave me the medicine, so I'll let you in to apologize to me face to face. Lu Kongwen said stiffly, I'm not foolish enough to go. Your dad would skin me alive. I sincerely apologize to you. Tell me what gift you want, and I'll send it to you. But I can't come in person. I'm going to hang up now. Wait a minute. Lu Kongwen stopped me from ending the call. You still plan to apply for Jingda, right? If you haven't changed your mind, I've filled out the application for you. You'll study at Jingda's dance department, and I'll study law. That reminded me of the day I left the exam hall. I had given Lu Kongwen my exam registration number and password. Lu Kongwen, if my scores are high enough for Jingda, can you fill it out for me? I pleaded behind him, hoping to gain his favor with a flattering face. He looked annoyed at the time, and fearing his refusal, I stuffed the note into his pocket and ran. I thought he had thrown away the note. To my surprise, he actually intended to help me with my application. No need, I said indifferently. Why? Lu Kongwen narrowed his eyes. His look full of danger. Ji Yenru, what do you mean? Don't you want to go to Jingda anymore? What was all your hard studying for? I was about to tell him that I wasn't going to Jingda, that I wanted to study further at the London Dance Academy, but then I thought it over and decided not to complicate things without my father's approval, so I hesitated and said, go ahead and fill it out, but don't submit it. I want to submit it myself. Okay, this is indeed a major milestone in your life. And it's right that you should make the final decision. You should confirm the submission yourself. It really means more, he said. Okay, then I'm hanging up. Wait, Lu Kongwen called out to me again. What else is there? Your sister and your mom came to visit me at the hospital today. I'll come by your house to visit in a few days. There's no need to update me about your plans. Goodbye. Chia Xiao called me, inviting me to her birthday party. She specifically mentioned, your crush will be there too. I heard he got a new hairstyle, looks even more handsome. Who is my crush? Who else but Lu Kongwen? Are you saying Lu Kongwen is going too? I was quite surprised. Knowing Lu Kongwen, he's always been rather aloof. Apart from the last gathering organized by our homeroom teacher, he never took part in any class activities. Since our last phone call, I had not contacted him again, after being reborn. I value my life more and try to stay as far away from him as possible. Ciao ciao. I just remembered, I have an English class tomorrow and can't make it to your party. How about I drop off the gift at your house after class? Not good enough. Ji Yenru, you're about to go study in Jing City with Lu Kongwen. Who knows when you'll see each other again. Skip class and come to my party. I had no choice, as Chia Xiao was the only one who stood by me when the whole school laughed at me. She always said I was a girl with a clear heart, daring to chase what I liked, a courage many lacked. So, when classmates mocked me as a cheap follower, Chia Xiao would stand up and retort, when you have the courage like Ji Yenru, then you can mock others. Don't think I don't know, you all just secretly pine and don't dare to say a word in person. During my absurd high school years, she never left my side, thus, I couldn't miss her birthday. After my IELTS class, I rushed to the hotel. Chia Xiao's family is well known in Haicheng, so her birthday party was quite grand. I dressed simply in jeans and a white t-shirt, which felt somewhat underdressed. Lu Kongwen was sitting on the sofa, with Ji Yunue by his side. He had gotten a buzz cut. His handsome features now appeared more striking and robust. He was tenderly pouring juice into Ji Yunue's glass, a gentle aura enveloping him. Ji Yunru wore a pristine white dress, looking pure and graceful like a noble snow lotus. Truly a match of equal talents and beauty. Anyone would comment on their perfect pairing. When I looked over, Lu Kongwen just happened to look up and our eyes met. He raised an eyebrow slightly and lifted his chin, signaling me to come over. His demeanor was proud and relaxed. I pretended not to see and chose the farthest seat from him. His expression instantly darkened. His friend, taken aback, teased, no way. Ji Yunru usually can't wait to throw herself at young Master Lu. What's with her today? I calmly smiled. I was young and naive before. Recently I had an epiphany. Decided not to bother young Master Lu anymore. That's impossible. I'd believe the sun rose from the west sooner than believe Ji Yunru doesn't like Lu Kongwen. You've been after Lu since freshman year. Everyone knows. What happened? Ji Yunru, nothing happened. A youthful crush can come suddenly and go just as quickly. Isn't that normal? I said lightly. Really, everyone was shocked by my unusual response today. Looking puzzled at each other and at me, looking at Lu Kongwen again, his lips were tightly pursed, his tongue lightly pressing against his cheek, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Ji Yenru, being liked by you is truly bothersome. I don't even like the snacks you send me, and I've carelessly thrown away the little gifts you left on my desk. It's also a headache always having to explain things to you. It's simply a waste of my time. I used to worry that if I rejected you too often, you might take it badly. Now that you've figured it out on your own, it's good. It shows you still have some self-respect. Though he spoke matter-of-factly, his tone was unmistakably scornful and relieved, as if he had shed a heavy burden. Ji Yinue tugged at his arm, chiding in a moderate tone. Kongwen, no matter what, Yenru is a girl. Why do you always talk to her this way? Her demeanor and tone made everyone perceive a close relationship between her and Lu Kongwen. Pitying glances were cast in my direction. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my skin, yet I felt no pain, only an indescribable awkwardness. Seeing my distress, Chia Qiao immediately became furious. She was dressed in a fluffy princess dress today, originally aiming for a soft and cute look, but now she stood with hands on her hips, fiercely berating without mercy. Lu Kongwen, when Ji Yanru liked you, you never showed her a welcoming face. Now that she doesn't like you, you speak with such sarcasm. What is this? Just because you don't like her, everything she does is wrong. Today I invited you thinking that Ji Yanru still liked you, but now that she has come to her senses and cut her losses, you are no longer welcome at my birthday party. Lu Kongwen, always a proud loner, naturally would not stay a minute longer upon being dismissed by Chia Qiao. He stood up and walked out. Ji Yinue hurriedly followed him, saying, Kongwen, wait for me. Xiao Qiao turned back and hugged me. Sweetie, I didn't arrange things well today. Let's not fall for such a cold-hearted man. Later, I'll introduce you to my cousin. He's handsome, studied abroad, and now manages our family's big company. He's definitely no worse than Lu Kongwen. As Lu Kongwen was walking by us, he paused upon hearing Xiao Qiao's words. A shadow crossed his eyes, and he gave me a complex look before sitting back down. I haven't eaten the birthday cake yet. I'll leave after having some. Everyone, fine, then I'll cut the cake now and get this over with, Xiao Qiao declared. A three-tier rainbow cake tower was wheeled in, and Xiao Qiao insisted that I join her in cutting it. Just as I leaned forward to cut the cake, Ji Yinue, who had just risen from her seat and hadn't yet settled back, suddenly lost her balance. She bumped into me, causing me to smash into the cake tower. Instantly, a messy blob of cream smeared across my white t-shirt, embarrassingly right across my chest. I'm sorry, Yenru, it wasn't intentional, Ji Yinue said nervously, trying to help me wipe it off, but the more she wiped, the larger the smeared area grew. Many of the boys stared openly. I felt so embarrassed I wished the ground would swallow me up. Xiao Qiao quickly shielded me. It's okay, my sister just gave me a skirt for my birthday, you can change into that. Though it was Xiao Qiao's birthday present, there seemed no other option at the moment. I reluctantly went into the restroom inside the private room to change. I stepped out awkwardly, and everyone in the private room looked at me quietly, their stares peculiar, tugging at my skirt, barely covering my bottom. I turned to Jojo pleadingly. Jojo, isn't this skirt a bit too short? Jojo's gaze was vacant for a moment, glancing from my chest to my legs. Swallowing hard, she clicked her tongue. Damn, Ji Yenru, your figure is simply explosive. My cousin is so lucky to have you. Those legs, that waist, and, she pointed at my chest, combined with that face of yours, you're absolutely a stunner. Even I'm getting a reaction here. The guy sitting next to Lu Kongwen asked in a somewhat raspy voice. Lu Xiao, are you sure you don't like Ji Yenru? If that's the case, may I pursue her? Lu Kongwen picked up his glass, took a sip, and said coldly, go ahead if you want. I don't like her. Thanks, bro. The guy stepped forward, introducing himself. Ji Yenru, I'm Chen Chen. I might not match up to Lu Xiao, but I really like you. How about we give it a try? Jojo quickly shielded me in her arms. Give what a try? Ji Yenru is going to be my cousin-in-law, so none of you guys should even think about it. The guy looked at me deeply, then hesitantly sat back down. Wearing this revealing outfit, I said to Jojo, I'm going to head back now. Just as Jojo nodded, a deeply affectionate confession suddenly blared from the big screen, unmistakably in my voice. Lu Kongwen, I like you. I really, really like you. Our college entrance exam results are out, right? I don't know if I managed to get into Beijing University with you, but even if I don't, I'll go to Beijing City with you, Lu Conwen. In this lifetime, Ji Yanru will only love you, only marry you. Wherever you go, I will follow. I was mortified. Social suicide. This video was indeed from me. It was my undying, foolish confession to Lu Conwen, but it was recorded before I was reborn. I knew Jojo would throw a birthday party and invite classmates, so I had given her this video in advance, showing my infatuation, to play during her party, after being reborn. I got so caught up with preparing to go abroad that I completely forgot about it. Jojo slapped the back of her head. Shoot, I forgot to remove this segment. I specifically instructed the staff to play my sister's video after the cake cutting. What do we do now? Classmates exchanged various mocking looks. Didn't she just say she didn't like him? What's this act now? Acting all aloof before, was it just playing hard to get? Is this a surprise for Lu Xiao? Lu Tsongwen's expression, cold all evening, softened slightly. Ji Yanru, is this a surprise you prepared for me? Actually, accepting your feelings, it's not entirely impossible. His ears tinged with a faint red. I frantically explained, Lu Conwen, please don't misunderstand. This video was recorded a long time ago. I gave it to Jojo way back and forgot to have it removed. I really don't like you anymore. Really don't like me anymore? Lu Conwen asked sternly, his fierce gaze locked on my face. Really? Truly, I raised my right hand, swearing. Lu Conwen scoffed. Ji Yanru, one moment you like, the next you don't. Are you playing with me? That night ended with Lu Conwen driving me home. Because the red miniskirt revealed much of my back, he insisted on draping his jacket over me as we got into the car. All the way, no matter how much I explained, Lu Conwen wore a look that said, let's see how you play this out. To prove I truly no longer liked him, I blocked his phone number and WeChat right in front of him. He left with his face turning blue from anger. After that, I never contacted him again, nor did I make any effort to be seen by him. Every day, I busied myself with English lessons and part-time jobs, spinning like a top. I recently pawned the jewelry my mother left me, so the first year's tuition should be manageable. But I'm not sure what to do about the tuition for the following years, so after class, I always go to work at a bubble tea shop. That evening, as I dragged my exhausted body home, my stepmother Wu Qing stopped me in the living room. Ji Yanru, a few days ago I showed your photo to President Wang of Wang Corporation, and he's quite interested in you. Meet him tomorrow. He could be very important for your father's business in the future. See if you can charm him with that bewitching face of yours. It would be a way of repaying this family. People can't just eat and drink for free without contributing anything, right? I turned to look at my father. My father, hesitating, asked Wu Qing, isn't President Wang quite a bit older than Yanru? Over 20 years older. In fact, isn't that a bit much? So what if he's older? Older men know how to cherish others. You and I are the same age, yet when I was young and chose you, you hid me away in the countryside, living like a mouse. Have you ever considered the suffering I endured? My father lowered his head upon hearing her rebuke. Wu Qing softened her tone a bit and said earnestly to me, Yanru, since I've taken on the role of your mother, I must look out for your happiness. President Wang might be a bit old and chubby, but he's a caring man. With him, you can look forward to a life of comfort. I looked at her coldly. If he's such a great man, why don't you introduce him to Ji Yunyue? Wu Qing's face turned cold. Is that kind of man worthy of our Yunyue? Yunyue is beautiful, smart, and has a great temperament. Only a man like young Master Lu is suitable for her. Don't overreach. Compared to Yunyue, do you think you even come close? My father kept his head down and remained silent. I knew then that the matter was settled and that resisting was futile. Wu Qing hated my mother and despised me. From the day I stepped into this house, she had been instigating my father to make me drop out of school. Ji Yanru isn't good at studying, and all she has is her looks. If we don't make use of it now, do we wait until she's old and faded? Over the years, she arranged for me to meet various sleazy middle-aged men, trying every way to squeeze out all the value I could offer. Worried about my future and desperate to escape this family, I took the risk of drugging Lu Conwen, hoping against hope to marry him, but I never expected that in my previous life, I would still end up tragically. I had just come of age, and facing the manipulative web of adult interests, I felt utterly powerless. I sighed, give me 100,000 yuan, and I'll meet with this President Wang tomorrow. Wu Qing, her face freshly treated with thermage, displayed a deep sarcasm. So you were waiting for me to say that? Fine, I'll give you the money. Whatever President Wang wants you to do tomorrow, you do it. As I went upstairs, I glanced back unintentionally. Ji Yunyue, who had been silent on the sofa, had a slight mocking smile on her lips. Seeing me look her way, she quickly managed her expression, returning to her usual aloof demeanor. President Wang was less than 1.6 meters tall, nearly 200 kilograms in weight, with a belly like he was 10 months pregnant. From the moment I sat at the table, he stared greedily at every inch of me, his gaze undisguised. He even took the opportunity to pour me a drink to touch my hand, very smooth, like a slippery little eel. He laughed lewdly. I suppressed my disgust, comforting myself. It's alright, Ji Yenru, you'll be leaving here soon, and now you have an extra 100,000 yuan for security. Eventually, as President Wang led me upstairs in a daze, Jojo burst in shouting, so this is where you were, Ji Yenru, you promised to go shopping with me and stood me up for a date. Let's see how I deal with you. She forcefully grabbed my arm and dragged me out. President Wang refused to let go. Miss, how could you just take her away like that? I was not finished talking with Miss Yunro. Jojo, sorry, uncle, I still have unfinished business with my sister, we need to leave. As she spoke, she dragged me into the car. In the car, I lay fearfully on Jojo's lap, my palms drenched in cold sweat. Jojo, if you had been even a moment later, you wouldn't have seen me again. Jojo gently patted my back, her tone filled with concern. Yunro, your stepmother is too cruel. How could she force you into the arms of such a man? Why doesn't she use her own daughter for such deals? My body shivered as I bitterly closed my eyes. Jojo held me tighter. Yunro, leave that home, I'll take care of you. I wrapped my arms around her waist, feeling a warm surge in my heart. Having Jojo as a confidant in my troubled life is a blessing I no longer regret. But Jojo's father has several illegitimate children, and she herself isn't happy. How could I possibly burden her more? I nestled closer in her embrace. Jojo, it's okay, I just need to hang out a few more days. As soon as I find the right moment, I'll leave that house for good. What about Ji Yunyu? No matter what, she's your sister. Can she really just stand by and watch her mom do evil without intervening? I recalled Ji Yunyu's mocking smile from last night, which sent a chill through my heart. We're sisters without affection, and there's no reason to morally obligate her. You are too kind, always thinking of others, Jojo said, poking my forehead in frustration before holding me even tighter. After getting out of the car, Jojo initially wanted to come in with me and confront my stepmother, but I didn't want her to get involved in the messy affairs of my family, so I firmly sent her away. Before I even entered the living room, I heard Wu Qing's cheerful laughter, peppered with ingratiating words. Were there guests at home? As I entered, I locked eyes with Lu Tsongwen, who sat prominently in the living room. His handsome face first registered surprise, then displeasure at seeing me in the seductive cheongsam. The cheongsam, a gift from Wu Qing, clung tightly to my figure, accentuating my curves in a way that seemed to beckon invitingly to men. Though Wu Qing had given me the dress, her face now looked displeased. Lu Xiao is our guest, and you're dressed like that. Go upstairs and change. How could you wear this? It's indecent. Ignoring Lu Tsongwen, I went straight upstairs. After changing, I lay on my bed, lost in thought, and chose not to go downstairs again. I knew Wu Qing didn't want me there, and there was no point in seeking discomfort. After drinking some alcohol, I was almost asleep when a knock at my door woke me. Lu Tsongwen's cold voice came through. Ji Yunro, open the door. Confused, I opened the door and looked up at the tall man before me. Undoubtedly, he was blessed with perfect looks, a top-tier family background and intelligence to match. My past infatuation with him wasn't without reason. What do you need? Lu Tsongwen's eyes softened, a tenderness in his voice I had never heard before. I thought your bedroom was the sunny one on the second floor, not realizing it was in the attic. It used to be on the second floor, but after Wu Qing and Ji Yunyu moved in, my bedroom was given to Ji Yunyu. Did you go on a blind date today? How was it? Did you like the person? He tried to appear natural, but the tense line of his neck betrayed his current nerves. It wasn't a blind date, I said. My family wants to give me away to a man 22 years my senior in exchange for a business license. Pity was undisguised in his eyes. I'm sorry, Yunru. I didn't realize things were so tough for you at home. I'll talk to Uncle G later and try to lean our family resources towards him so he won't have to degrade himself by selling his daughter for honor. It's okay, I'm used to it. In my past life, my situation wasn't any better, but as my husband, Lu Conwen was completely oblivious to my suffering because he didn't like me, he didn't care about me. His indifference even led Wu Qing to mock and ridicule me every chance he got, turning me into a joke among the elite circles. So now, his pity. I don't crave it at all. Lu Kongwen cautiously watched my expression. May I come in and sit? It's not convenient, I replied coolly. Lu Tsongwen's gentle facade finally crumbled. He was never good at cajoling women. Ji Yunru, must you speak to me in that tone? What tone would you prefer? The infatuated one I used when I used to chase after you. Lu Tsongwen's chest heaved with anger, and it took him a long time to calm down. Finally giving up, forget it, I won't argue with you. I came to ask why you haven't submitted yet. The deadline for college applications is tomorrow. I've filled it out for you, just confirm it. It's not hard, I know. Let me review and modify it before submitting. What's there to modify? I've enrolled you in the dance department at Jing University, and the following choices are schools close to Jing University. You said even if you can't get into Jing University, you want to go to Jing City with me. You used to find me annoying, didn't you? That was before. And now, Lu Kongwen faltered, his neck flushing pink. Suddenly, I saw a flash of a white skirt at the end of the hallway. It was Ji Yunyu. Lu Kongwen struggled for a while, finally bowing his head in surrender. Ji Yunru, I don't know what's wrong with me. I get anxious when I don't hear from you, panicked at the thought you might not like me anymore. I want to see you, to keep you in front of my eyes and not let you run away. Although today I officially came to thank Ji Yunyu and her mother for visiting me in the hospital, in reality, I came to see you. His voice grew softer towards the end, his face grew redder, his beautiful eyes shimmered with a hopeful light, seemingly awaiting my response. The white skirt behind the wall swayed. I gestured for Lu Kongwen to come closer. Can you hug me? Upon hearing this, an ecstatic expression instantly appeared on Lu Tsongwen's forlorn face. Ruru, do you still like me? I knew it. I'm so glad I wasn't mistaken. With that, he bent slightly and pulled me into his embrace. He buried his chin in the nape of my neck, his tone addictive. Ruru, it's like I'm poisoned by you. I'm lost all day. I pretended to patiently pat his back. In my past life, I loved him to the point of madness. He was always lukewarm towards me, and I was constantly afraid of being rejected by him. So, every time he put on his suit and was about to leave, I would tiptoe to kiss his chin and rub against him playfully. Often, this would lead to him carrying me back upstairs, and he would skip going to the office. Back then, being held in his arms felt incredibly blissful, but now, lying in his arms, I feel an inexplicable irritation. I squirmed, trying to escape. Don't move, Ro. His voice carried an unnatural embarrassment. I then realized he was physically reacting. I dared not move carelessly anymore. Lu Kongwen was quiet for a while, but the urge didn't subside. He shifted his lips and kissed my neck. My body stiffened, and before I could push him away, he sought my lips again. Lu Kongwen, this isn't the right place. Let's go to the room, I suggested. Lu Kongwen, without ever loosening his grip on my waist, pushed me into the room and kicked the door shut. After Lu Kongwen left, I went downstairs for a drink. Wu Qing was proudly listing the precious gifts Lu Kongwen had brought over to my father. This makeup set must be worth tens of thousands, right? It's not even available in the domestic market yet, and this wild ginseng, I don't know how much it costs. I've never seen such a large one. Seeing me, she lifted her chin with arrogance and said, Yunro, come see the gifts your sister's boyfriend has brought. There are so many I can't even name them all. He must really adore our Yunyu. I smiled. Yes, Yunyu is really fortunate. It seems you are right. Everyone has their own fate. No matter how hard I try, I can't compare to even a finger of Ji Yunyu. Wu Qing smiled contentedly. At least you know your place. I went upstairs and knocked on Ji Yunyu's door. She was wearing a pure white dress, but her complexion was dull and lifeless. I smiled. Can we talk? Talk about what? Her tone was icy, lacking her usual carefree demeanor. You saw everything just now, I said with a smile. Ji Yunyu angrily turned her face away, refusing to look at me. Tell your mom to give me 5 million so I can go abroad. I won't compete with you for Lu Kongwen, I stated. On what grounds? You think your worthless life is worth 5 million? Her tone was more venomous than ever, whether it was my words that angered her, or if this was her true face showing. On what grounds? Because Lu Kongwen likes me now. I have a better figure and prettier face than you, and I can attend the same university as you. If I decide to seduce him, you'll never have a chance to be Mrs. Lu. Ji Yunyu looked at me with intense jealousy, but being clever, she eventually gave in. I'll talk to my mom, but how can you assure me that once you get the money, you will leave? I pulled up the acceptance letter from the London Dance Academy on my phone. Because I have a better future and destiny. Looking around the room, which used to be cutesy but now was simply plain, I taunted, "Sister, don't make me wait too long, or else Luke Conwyn will end up being your brother-in-law." 3 days later, I got the money as I wished and boarded a plane to London. Before takeoff, Luke Conwyn called me from an unknown number. "Ro, why haven't you unblocked me yet? Where are you? I want to see you. I've never wanted to see someone so badly." "I can't wait another moment." The flight attendant announced the boarding details over the intercom. Luke Conwyn's tone instantly became tense. "Ruru, are you on the plane? Where are you going?" "London." "What are you doing in London?" His tone rose unconsciously, losing its usual calm. "I'm going to study." "Luke Conwyn, I'm telling you one last time, I don't like you anymore. I didn't apply to Beijing University. And I'm not going to Beijing with you. Don't contact me anymore." "What do you mean?" "What about that night in your room?" I scoffed. "That night, nothing happened, right?" That day, to make the act complete, I had let Luke Conwyn into my room, but once inside, I pulled away from his embrace. He calmed himself down for a long time, waiting for his body to settle. Then, I pleaded with him to explain the details of filling out college applications. We stayed in the room for a long time, but actually, nothing happened. In this lifetime, Luke Conwyn never even touched my lips. But with the illusion of that night, I blackmailed Ji Yunue and gained my freedom. There was a long silence on the other end. Just when I thought Luke Conwyn would hang up, he finally spoke. "Ruru, I really do like you. It used to be you chasing me, and I didn't cherish it. From now on, I'll be the one chasing you, and I will show you a sincerity greater than you ever showed me." I remained silent and hung up the phone. Luke Conwyn visited London before the term started at Beijing University. But I kept avoiding him. He spent several days downstairs at my apartment building, finally returning to the country, disappointed. His emails kept coming, filled with his longing for me and his deep love. He even sent me a black card, hoping to ease my financial burden and make my life easier. If this had happened before my rebirth, I would have been profoundly grateful for his concern, but now, his belated affection felt worthless as weeds. I deleted his emails, and sent the black card back. Later, he somehow got my new mobile number and called to say he would visit me in London during the winter break and asked me to wait for him, but in the end, he didn't come. It was only later that I learned from Jojo that before the winter break at Beijing University, Ji Yunue had drugged Luke Conwyn and they had slept together. Afterwards, the Ji family forced Luke Conwyn to get engaged to Ji Yunue. Ashamed, Luke Conwyn didn't come to see me. He began drinking heavily and stopped attending classes. Who would have thought Ji Yunue, seemingly so pure and chaste, would resort to such despicable tactics? Jojo said indignantly. History has a surprising way of repeating itself. Fortunately, this time, I avoided their tangled web of love and hatred and no longer had to drink that bitterly cold seawater. When I heard this news, I had just completed a successful performance as the principal dancer in my troupe. The audience showered me with enthusiastic applause and flowers. In the bustling backstage, I thought I saw a familiar tall figure. He left a bouquet of dazzling roses on the rack by the door and gave me a deep, lingering look. His departing figure was lonely and desolate.